Hi there, and welcome to another live on YouTube with, of course, the wonderful, as seen on TV, the top everything nutritionist, Keto-pro food supplier, everything. Here we got the Richard Smith. Hi, Richard.
Way too kind. How you doing? You okay? Good weekend?
Yeah. We did a long walk with Rupert this morning at Chatsworth House, which was good. He was very excited. And we had some wonderful lamb. We had a leg of lamb, which was 2.7 kilos of lamb yesterday in the oven. So we had that hot yesterday and cold today. What about yourself?
Yeah, been a busy weekend for me. Did a park run on Saturday. Came down with a migraine soon after, which I used to suffer with every day. For which I was on 3 different medications for, but it came from nowhere. Still unsure what caused that, to be honest. Still a little bit groggy with it, but didn't do an awful lot after. Went to support the running club on a cross-country run this morning. And yeah, that's it. That's been my weekend, to be honest. It's yeah.
Well, maybe the migraine was because you're working too hard or too many hours.
Yeah, so it number of contributing factors. Food is the biggest by a long way. Since I changed my diet, gravitated towards keto and carnivore, they've almost been non-existent. But other triggers, things like stress and lack of sleep, 2 of which are things that predominate when you are self-employed. So, but I do wonder. We did go for a breakfast after the run. And I ordered some food and a coffee. And when the young lady brought the coffee out to me, it had milk in. And I didn't have the heart to tell her. I didn't know if it was my mistake or whether she had made. So I just, I can't be bothered with any. It was super busy there. She was rushed off her feet. So I didn't want to be a problem. So I just drank the coffee that had milk in. I haven't drunk milk for years and years. So I don't know if it was that. Who knows? I guess I'll never know. But there are any number.
Yeah, I think it's likely if you haven't had something for a long time and you used to be intolerant to it, then as you've once said to me, you get that exaggerated reaction from a small bit. So I mean, there's so many things when you're working for yourself that people don't sort of realize. So just to say, thanks to everyone that subbed, but I've realized that 81% of people who watch my videos, and I don't know if you've looked at your analytics, Rich, 81% of people that watch them don't subscribe. Now, if you don't really know how that helps, that really helps the channel. So if you're into this way of eating and want to spread the word, it's not to make us famous, because that's really unlikely, but it does help to get the content out there and get the guests on, and so if you haven't subbed, try and subscribe to both of our channels, and it really does help. It doesn't cost you any money. You don't have to ever come back and watch another video either, but it will help, honestly. Just going to quickly go through, just saying hello to a few people. Once a week, man. Even a volcanic eruption can't stop you. Thank you. Selena, evening all. We missed you at the meeting last Monday, Selena. I know you had a good excuse. And I know it's Sunday now, but we also do a Monday meeting on Mighty Networks. Herbert, good evening. That's nice to see you again. I'll go on, Rich. How do you pronounce her name?
Noir.
Hi there, guys. I've made a live and at the start. 5 stars for you. Yeah, well done. That's good. Meat-tastic. Evening, gents. Looking forward to another meeting with an A in the meeting of great minds tonight. You're a meaty source of great advice, like that. Daryl, good day, guys. But we assume that's from Australia or New Zealand, if I remember rightly. Pursuit of Bliss. Hi, y'all. Feel free to jump in and say something, Rich, if you know the people. Tam, hello, boys. Hope you're both well. Tam, no?
Yeah. No, Tam. Yeah.
Great.
Most of these so far, yeah. No, Herbert also.
Good. Try it again and you can find out. Don't know what that is.
Is there another?
Try it again. Oh, yes. Try your coffee with milk again.
Right. No, Yeah. I'd rather not.
Yes. Phil Richardson, my migraines were bad, but so much better on keto carnivore. Lack of sleep, they sometimes come back. I mean, one of the things is if you're under a lot of stress, I think anxiety can cause a problem.
Do you know, I remember the first ever migraine that I had was in school. I was 12, maybe 13, and boys being boys, we were playing around, and I fell on the fly. I went to do a flying kick. I thought I was like the Karate Kid at the time, like, and fell on my butt, and my knee hit the floor with quite some force. And you know that feeling when you feel dizzy and flustered, and you become really hot, and well, that kicked in, and there was shortly after that a little spot appeared, and everywhere I looked, this spot was. And it started to grow and grow until it went into my other eye and grow. And then on the way home, I was almost completely blind. It was like looking through frosted glass. And I was petrified. I thought I was going blind, and I didn't know what was going on. So my mum rushed me down to it wasn't hospital. It was one of the local facilities you can go to the out of hours surgeries. And they diagnosed it with, as being migraines. Every day since then, I had a migraine. Every single day. I went through lots of different medications. And at the height, I was on 3 different medications, which I had to take every day. So I had a continuous migraine constantly, and it was just a case of managing this. When I became ketogenic, they went away. And I still get them. I may get 1 or 2 a year, opposed to being every day. But it's funny that, it was that stress impact that caused the initial one. But then it seemed to be diet that sort of helped me manage that. Because obviously you're still under stress. And the interesting thing was I did a run that day, and it was just after a park run. And I wonder if it was the stress of the run. But that's something that isn't uncommon. I've never had one during or after training before. The only thing that was different was that milk in the coffee, which I was too polite to send back. So, lesson learned.
Yeah, maybe there's a tolerance level, that you go above, that you can cope with the bit of running and a bit of this and a bit of stress about work or whatever, and then just one thing tips you over the edge, maybe.
Yeah, quite possibly. But I mean, they are different sources of stress as well, and I do believe that they work differently within the body. I've worked considerably harder. It wasn't, pardon the expression, but it wasn't a balls out run. I wasn't going, I did give it some, but I've trained and given considerably harder than that previously. But so, yeah, milk, it just brings it back to what we say continuously about the detrimental impacts of milk. That's what it was. I mean, maybe I shouldn't even be drinking coffee. It's I have cut down considerably, but coffee still plays an important part in my diet in regards to the benefits that it confers over the downstream effects, which I don't seem to suffer with. So it's maybe I should.
Yeah, but the caffeine. I mean, if I drink coffee, it's Swiss water decaf, and Swiss water simply is the process. There's no chemicals involved taking out the caffeine, but it is going to trigger the adrenals. I mean, one of the things that I think we don't really mention enough, we talk about the fight or flight response, but really, actually, it's 3 Fs. It's fight, flight, or freeze. And that's what you see in nature. You see some animals, they freeze. They don't know what to do. And that's where anxiety plays a role, because you're supposed to have anxious moments because it forces you into decision to take one of those other 2. So if you freeze and feel anxious, that's your body saying you really need to fight or flight. That's it. Freezing, well, actually, some animals do freeze and don't get seen by their predator. But other animals, the anxiety is the kicker. So sometimes you'll see an animal and you'll think, well, I'm going to run them over or something like that. And they freeze and then they move. Whereas other animals immediately see you and bolt off. So, maybe the fact that you've got to make lots of big decisions, it was just a case of one decision too many. I don't know. Triggered a bit of anxiety along with the caffeine, along with the milk. It's like what they call a perfect storm, where it's loads of different things.
Yeah, quite possibly. Who knows?
Yeah.
It's not an unfamiliar situation for me, so it.
Well,
No,
I think
but
people like hear us talking it out sometimes. But Matthew, hi, Matthew's a moderator over at Mighty Networks, fabulous guy. Selena was there, she says, and she was just quietly watching. Blake is saying that he's started a new category called wild carnivore. I now only eat wild meat, mainly deer from local hunters. Have you looked into wild deer meat nutrients versus farmed cows in the UK Warwickshire area? Well, we haven't looked into that, but that's the sort of thing that's right up Richard's street, actually. We were looking at deer today at Chatsworth, but not to eat them, just admiring them grazing. Herbert had migraines between 12 and 20 years old, which was really reaction to milk, what I found out 35 years later. So you could be onto something, Rich.
Oh, there's no doubt it's a contributor. I was just shocked at how little it took to put me out of action for better part of half a day, so it nothing that what I had to do to combat that was I took 40 grams of electrolytes in a small volume of water, so I overloaded my system with sodium. So I always carry the electrolytes with me despite being in a coffee cup. But
explain this. You overloaded your system. Is this a
hack? So sodium is incredibly important for combating things like migraines. Sarah Davis sent me a paper going back last year which looked at the sodium potassium concentrations in migraine sufferers and how to combat it. So I've tried with salt, but no matter how much salt I put into a glass, it just didn't seem to do anything at all. But 40 grams is an awful lot. I mean, to put that into perspective, that's nearly 5,000 milligrams of sodium in one hit. I did that. I went to bed, and 2 hours later, it started to clear up, which is very unfamiliar with me. When I do get a migraine attack, they're usually in a cluster form, which means they last a couple of days. They'll come and go. But they can last 3 days straight. So I could be bedridden for 3 days. This is that's the state that they used to put me into going back many years ago. But half a day later, at least I was back operational, still with a fuzzy head. But that was my my little hack.
So that amount of sodium, could you put that into teaspoons? How much would that be?
So a tablespoon is 15, so it's a third of a tablespoon. So that's probably just over a teaspoon, I'm guessing. Is that right? But that's sodium. That's not salt either. So I mean, it's it's an awful lot of. That's quite sodium. A lot of yeah.
And is that sodium chloride? You mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
With all the other bits, yeah. So it. So we're told not to overconsume on sodium, and we shouldn't consume over 1,500 milligrams per day. But I did 4 times that volume almost there, wasn't it? Or 3. But it's sodium is super important. And one thing I've been neglecting recently, as Amanda, my wife, pointed out over the last 2 weeks, is I haven't been consuming as many electrolytes as I would normally. So I just haven't felt like I needed to, though. So I've, so whether it's connected, who knows?
This is a weird thing because we've got a question coming up, which is about supplements. But I also want to pick up on what Herbert was saying, that he has reactions to milk, but not to cream. And that's me. That's also me, Herbert. And oddly, today in the cafe at Chatsworth, we had this very conversation with Jane's daughter and her better half. Right. Now then, question, which is what we're here for. Landers, Stephen and Richard, question. Are there any supplements you have stopped taking since going over to the carnivore lifestyle?
Yeah, all of them. When we talk of supplements, I mean, the electrolytes, they're classed as foods, they're minerals, and they're all natural. So, I mean, if you want to class that as a supplement, I use that. The MCT oil and powder I use, if you want to class that as a supplement, although it is derived from coconuts, and the BHB, which comes from bacteria. But all of these, we can get from the foods that we eat, but these are highly concentrated amounts. If you were to class those as supplements, I use those daily. The protein that we manufacture, I use now and again. I don't use as often as I used to because I get all of the protein that I need from the meat that I eat. It's fantastic if you're caught short and you're on the road, and it's a brilliant substitute. But I don't use it as often as I used to. Creatine, I don't use anymore, only because it seems to cause issues with my lower back. I think the tightening of the muscle when I'm running causes a little bit too much stress, but we love creatine. Leucine I used to take all sorts of vitamins and minerals. Any vitamin and mineral supplement you can think of, I used to take. But the thing when it comes to supplements is that they're not in animal form more often than not. They're made from plants, which carry very low bioavailability in the body. A multivitamin supplement will often compete for absorption with the other vitamins in there also. So whereas a piece of meat takes 2 days to go through the digestive process and absorb all of those nutrients, you put a multivit in and they all hit your system at the same time, which isn't how food works. That's not how we digest food. So they all collide with each other or compete for absorption, and very little of those get absorbed. If you notice, if you've ever supplemented with a multivitamin or an iron supplement, it turns your excrement to green. This is because most of it's coming out, but no matter how much meat you eat, an iron you get from liver, it doesn't seem to do the same thing. So this is another case of the body absorbing from animal sources or natural sources. Any supplement you can think of over the years, I've tried it, and I don't use any of them anymore, other than the ones that I've just listed, if you class those as supplements.
And again, it's goal driven, isn't it? Because do you think that you might take one of the supplements if you were going back into bodybuilding?
Yes. So leucine I might take again because it's an incredible activator of mTOR. Yes, we can get it through the food we eat, but using that just before meal times, they work synergistically to further increase this reaction without affecting the mTOR reset. Fantastic supplement, but one of those ones that you can't gauge if it's working either, because building muscle is such a slow process. But the science there is solid. Creatine is solid. I tell a lie. One I've introduced recently is citrulline malate. I started putting that back in before my runs, because what I found is it's helping massively with my running. It's a potent vasodilator. It increases nitric oxide and causes the arteries to dilate, which means that I get more oxygen through my body a lot quicker. And I've noticed that for the same perceived effort, my heart rate is considerably lower, which is fantastic, which means you've got, technically in theory, you have more to give. Since I've been putting that in, I only use about half a teaspoon of that just before a run with exogenous ketones. That has taken my running to another level. The last 4 runs that I've done, I've PB'd on courses that are ridiculously elevated. But again, that's another amino acid that comes from nature. So, and that's the difference, I think, between a lot of these other supplements. But it's, again, that's open for debate, I guess. But creatine, yeah, leucine, the citrulline malate. But it is definitely demand driven. I would put creatine back in if I was bodybuilding again. I used to supplement with the pre-workout that we produce, which is a blend of amino acids, but again, but they're in a concentrated form. I use that if I'm doing any explosive work. But yeah, so it's very much demand driven.
What about that BHB? Would that have not helped your migraine?
Yes. Yeah. So the BHB, the chocolate BHB that we did, I took some of that along with MCT because they work synergistically. But that's something I use daily anyway. I use that for a number of purposes. I use it to help block inflammation, for mental clarity. I use it as a sleep aid because it helps, calm the body before bed. It gives you mental energy and energy on demand. But the BHB is bound to salts. So it's beta hydroxybutyrate, which is fuel for the body, the brain, and the heart. But they're also bound to electrolytes. So, your all you're doing there is consuming more sodium and potassium.
I get
So
it. Yeah.
it's an electrolyte. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've dabbled with supplements all my life, especially when I was a high carb athlete. So I've taken multivitamins. Just echoing your talk about your body not absorbing them. If you take B vitamins, my urine goes fluorescent within about 12 hours, which I think is a sign that your B complex vitamin you're taking is possibly not needed. So yeah, I tried that. I have tried virtually everything bodybuilding wise, the protein powders and post workouts and pre workouts and all that. And as I got older, I realized less and less that that's what I needed to do, and more I needed to eat better. That was it. And when I got to 50, I wasn't taking any supplements really. I do the electrolytes, as everyone knows, which is actually down to talking to Rich. So at least one person listens to him. So yeah, I wasn't taking electrolytes until then, but I was, constantly thinking about hydration. And I suppose the only supplement in the last 3 years that I've tried and definitely works for me, which is completely off piste, as they say, but I do the Stem Enhance, which is the thing that promotes adult stem cell release. And I've tried that and I felt better, but then I thought it might be just a phase in my life, and then I stopped. And I didn't feel as good. And then when I went back on, I felt better. So that's been really good. So at the moment, that's all I'm doing: the Stem Enhance and the electrolyte drink. That's it. That's my supplement. The best supplement is food, without a shadow of a doubt. Like I say, 2.7 kilograms of lamb being roasted in just its own juices and then served just with butter, and oh wow, it was amazing. So yes, let's move on. That was a good question, Landers. Thank you very much. And a question just for me. I obviously wasn't very clear. Meat-tastic, Stephen, what was the coffee you mentioned? Not heard of it before. Swiss Water Decaf. And like I say, it's not a brand. It's just a process. So you can get Swiss Water decaffeinated coffee sort of anywhere in the world. You should be able to get it because it is a very clean way of decaffeinating it. Blake says the nutrients in deer are higher and it feels very natural way to eat for our history. Also, there's no antibiotics or nasty rubbish ending up in the animal. And I fully believe that, to be honest. But they're so cute. Anyway, Matthew, feel free to join Stephen and Richard's Mighty Networks group. You won't regret it. It's great to be in the group with like-minded people who care deeply about having great health. And while we're plugging that, there is the Fat Club on there, which is a great way of just getting some advice without having to turn up to meetings. So if you've been looking at all these challenges, for instance, and you thought, oh, I've missed the boat, I didn't do it 1st of January, didn't do it 2nd of January, our Fat Club is on there. So you can start any day you like. So if tonight you're watching this or whenever you're watching this and you think, I'm going to give this a go, I need some guidance. It doesn't matter. You haven't got to wait for the 1st of February or the 1st of March or whatever. You can dive straight in. And it's about 8 weeks of daily advice on how to go over to keto or carnivore or low carb. It just tells you all different ways to do it. So, there's a lot of messages tonight. I think that might be Juha, how you pronounce that. Question, your opinion and attitude to supplements, glycine, collagen, I think that is, for nail, hair, and skin and joints. How about methylation aids, creatine and B12? I'm a 58-year-old male. Take them with some benefit. So I'll leave that on the screen, Rich, so you can tick off each one.
How to do something with glycine. Yeah, again, glycine and collagen, we can get these from the food that we eat. It's just we don't. And the reason being is we don't consume the gristle and the end of the joints on the bone in chicken and the streaky pieces through the beef. These are bits that historically we've been told to cut off. I consume all of them because I understand the benefit to the compounds within. But you can get them from those. But it's a case of we don't crush the bones of the animals that we eat anymore. Some of us make bone broth. Most of us don't. We would have caught and killed an animal. We would have consumed everything within that animal. we would have, not one part of that animal would have gone to waste, and and that includes the bones. But we don't typically crush bones into a mush and consume those anymore, or strip the marrow. We're quite airy-fairy about the the cartilage on the joints and stuff, and it's so high in collagen. So a fantastic source. But last time I went out for food with Amanda and my brother and his missus, Amanda had some chicken, and on the chicken was the cartilage of the bones, and she made a point of telling me that that's very high in collagen. So it's are you going to eat it? And she didn't want to eat it because it isn't very palatable. So I did. But it's one thing understanding the benefit of these compounds, but are you going to eat them? We understand the benefit of organ meats, but many can't stand organ meats. They turn a lot of people away. Loads of people that I've pulled into the carnivore space still can't cope with fatty cuts of beef. So in that case, a supplement is a fantastic option if you are unable to do those things. If you can make bone broth and eat all the cartilage off the bones and do all those things, then that's fantastic. As far as methylation aids, if we're living a natural lifestyle and we're not over consuming any of the anti-nutrients, then methylation typically shouldn't be a problem. There's a lot of nuance to this as well, because when we look at what's required for methylation, we need folate, vitamin B9, B12, cobalamin, pyridoxine, vitamin B6, and this creates methylfolate, which breaks down things like homocysteine, and which creates methionine and leads to the creation of something called SAMe. SAMe carries loads of benefits in regards to tackling inflammation, detoxing the body, makes neurotransmitters, all these sorts of things. But if the body is unable to process or utilize the B9, B12, B6, then methylation doesn't occur as well. Lots of things can prevent the body from doing this. Things like zinc, iron, magnesium, all of these things, the B vitamins can be blocked by anti-nutrients, by fiber, by phytic acid. Zinc, for example, can be blocked by as much as 100% in the presence of phytic acid. So if we are consuming things like grains or fibrous foods, then damage to how the body allows us to perform methylation is hindered. But when we live carnivore, what you tend to find is that the body can do this without any problem. So it's, as far as methylation supplements, it depends on what supplement you're looking at. Be interesting to know which one you were taking. But living this carnivore lifestyle is generally going to allow you to perform methylation correctly without any supplementation. And again, there's another comment in there that caught my eye earlier that, I can't remember what it was, something to do with, you shouldn't have to supplement if you're living a carnivore lifestyle. And ideally you shouldn't, but again, it is goal driven, and it depends on how deep down this rabbit hole you are willing to go in regards to eating, the gristle and stuff on the bone. And it goes a lot deeper. The overconsumption of meat can throw off the methionine to glycine ratio. So just eating meat, like we see Sean Baker just eating meat, there is an argument to put things in like organ meats, but you don't have to. But the ratio with just eating muscle protein with the glycine, oh my goodness, I lost my train of thought now. What were we talking about?
Well, it was actually that point that we shouldn't have to supplement on this way of eating. But I think, I'm going to just make it a bit broader, Rich, is we don't live in a perfect world. Look at the soil. You look at what the cows are eating grass, but how nutrient dense is their diet, which is nothing to do with the cows or the meat that we eat. Sadly, because there's pesticides and fertilizers and environmental problems and pollution, carnivores 500 years ago probably got much better quality meat than we do now. And it's the need to supplement is because we also have a lifestyle which sucks us of some of the, some of our energy. We've got red light, we've got laptops, we've got fluorescent lighting, fluoride in the water, so there's so many things that we're combating. And obviously bad diets in the past. I was a high carb advocate, so I need some assistance. I haven't got perfect teeth because of the way I used to eat. It's not because I'm nutritionally deficient now. So there's a lot of bad things that happen to people. It takes a lot of undoing. And I think I agree with the principle that if we're eating this way, we shouldn't need to supplement. But sadly, that isn't the reality. And if you're getting ground beef or you're on a budget, you might need to supplement with some things. You just may need to. Anyway, let's go on, because we could, like you say, Rich, talk about that all night. This is sort of on the same thing. Vitamin D, should we supplement? I heard Richard say that his levels were good. Is that from diet only? Well, you can look at Rich and say, well, he never goes out in the sun. So there's a little joke there, Rich.
I don't.
Yeah, you're in
right.
Wales.
Yeah.
Where it rains.
I'm in Wales and I'm indoors constantly, which isn't healthy. I'm in pursuit of this optimal health. I want to be as healthy as I can. I need to be out in the sun more, and I do not get enough. And I know that. There's lots of things that I don't do, but it's we try our best to fill all of these slots, but the difference is I'm also aware. I'm always hyper aware of the things that I'm not doing correctly. There's not many of them, but it's but they are out there. But in answer to that question, there's two kinds of people in regards to processing and utilizing vitamin D. Some can get it predominantly through food, and some are predispositioned to predominantly get it through sunlight. And yes, we can all get through sunlight, but I think coming back to your comment, where I am in the world, I've never been exposed to lots of sun. My ancestors wouldn't have been. So I process vitamin D from meat incredibly well. So my vitamin D levels are high. There may be other people who maybe come from exotic climates where the sun is blazing down constantly, where more fruit would have been available and less animal proteins. So maybe they are more predisposition to get that from the sun. So it depends on your heritage, I guess, and where you come from. But you can get more than enough vitamin D from meat. Mine is incredibly high.
Yeah, not enough fat in the diet can also cause a problem, because you need that cofactor to synthesize sunlight. The lowest vitamin D level I've ever seen was from a ultra vegan who lived in Arizona.
Wow.
And could not believe he had very low vitamin D. And I said, you're incredibly low body fat, and also your very low intake of fat is possibly the thing that's holding you up. See, when I did the bloods, I don't push the way I eat or what I think should be healthy, but I do point out if there's a deficiency that's causing some of the problems, because that is a fact. You need fat as a cofactor.
Also, as a side note there, Steve, it's if you are overweight, as in carrying lots of body fat, supplementing with vitamin D isn't going to do any good anyway, because your body fat stores become a sink for vitamin D supplementation. So vitamin D supplementation in that respect is not going to confer a benefit anyway. The best thing to do is live the lifestyle, become a fat burner, reduce the body fat, and eat lots of food that contains, as you rightly say, lots of fatty sources that allow us to assimilate these fat soluble vitamins. But it's nothing's ever straightforward, is it? There's never a clean, straight answer, and it's different for everybody. And we're all different. So it's
well, we're dealing with hundreds of different people from hundreds of different countries. So yeah, Carol, I've really apologized. I missed this question earlier. It's quite a simple, straightforward question. I'm struggling with giving up caffeine. Do you have any tips? Yes, you can look at an alternative such as decaf. That's sort of like a gateway to getting rid of caffeine. Is it caffeine you're talking about or coffee? Because I like the ritual. I mean, I really was one of those sort of grind my own beans, which I still do, type of people, that had the machine at home, and I liked the ritual of going for a coffee and sitting in the garden when the sun's coming up and having a coffee. Now, I don't think that's been detracted from that sort of experience by having decaf. It's the same thing pretty much. If I wanted to give up completely, then you could look at hot water, or you can have sort of hot water with lime in or with lemon in or something like that. I think if it's the ritual, then that's a thing you need to do, like have a hot drink. If you want to give it up completely and just drink water, then I strongly suggest going cold turkey and just telling everybody, please support me. I think one of the things is when you're trying to do something, give up, it's good to get the support network around you, so your friends and family, to actually support you and explain why you're doing it, and say, you think your health is going to be better if you don't have coffee or caffeine. And whatever your why is for that, tell them and say, from now on, I'm going to just have mineral water when I go out, maybe with some lime in or something. Fizzy water, some people go for. But it's not easy, and you have to work out exactly why you're giving it up. I understand why most people give it up, but I don't know your actual reason. So hopefully that was helpful. Have you got any tips, Rich?
That's spot on. Perfect. Nothing to add.
Oh, that's good. I've got a 10 out of 10 from Richard. I'm going to shut the thing down now. I feel quite pleased with myself. Right, this is a really good question. So, Rich, you could possibly start with this one then. Saved. I'm carnivore, but I'm gaining body fat. And if I cut the fat, I'm hungry. I exercise 3 to 4 times a week.
Yeah, look, it is a difficult one. It's one of these things that I go through regularly in regards to trying to achieve a specific body weight for a goal. So for me, it is goal driven. If the thing is, you may be gaining body fat, but you may be incredibly healthy. So we think of images like that being ripped and shredded as being healthy, but it isn't. Quite often, we quite often see this or put this image in our head of Greek gods and think we need to be chiseled and ripped. And I don't believe that that's the case. I think a little bit of fluff is a good thing. And I keep coming back to that program that I saw on Netflix, Physical 100, with a guy that won was just a normal looking guy who looked fit, but nothing special, wasn't overly big, wasn't overly ripped. If you'd seen him in the street, with a shirt on, you wouldn't give him a second look. But he was clearly the fittest there, and healthiest there, because he was the all-rounder. But for me, like I'm in the constant battle of reducing my body weight so I can be faster on the bike and running. And the simple fact is, if I eat more fat, then I store fat. I don't necessarily gain body fat, which is going to spin a lot of people out, because what you can store fat in the muscle. And what you fill is something called the intracellular myolipids, which is basically you put fat into the muscle. So you may gain weight, but you may not be actually gaining any stored body fat in the sense that we see it as. You will be hungry if you're not eating fat, plain and simple. Doesn't mean that you're not getting everything that you need, as long as you're sensible with the volume of fat that you're consuming. But if you're losing weight, it's okay to be a little bit hungry. We wouldn't have been in a fed state continuously through our evolutionary period. We would have gone long periods of times where we would have been hungry. And that's fine. It doesn't mean that you don't have to be satiated constantly throughout the day. If you are feeling hungry, then your body's doing its work and you're burning body fat. Now, when I do a fast, if I do a 24-hour fast, I get hungry towards the end. If I do a 48, by the time 48 comes along, I'm no longer hungry. But I do get a dip. There's about a spell for about 30, 40 minutes in which time I would normally have my eating window. And coming into that, I would usually start to feel, I could really do with something now. And it'll almost become overwhelming. And then suddenly it's gone. And now before I know it, I've hit 48 hours and now I'm rolling on, and I'm on my way to 72. So things move in waves as well. So but just remember, it's okay to be a little bit hungry. Unfortunately, these are things that we've got to fight. You can help cravings. So, and that's the other thing. Are you hungry or are you craving? So supplementing with glutamine, another amino acid that can help curb cravings. Omega-3. So when you are eating, if you eat omega-3s help with satiety. I think they increase cholecystokinin, CCK. But the thing with omega-3s is they don't store easily in the body, whereas like the saturated fats tend to store, but omega-3s don't. So if you could eat an awful lot of sardines or mackerel, and you would feel satiated after it because you've eaten quite a lot of it. You're getting all of the proteins, the vitamins and minerals, and the fats from the omega-3s. And also coming back to the vitamin D comment, UVA to the eyes without glasses on. That helps block hunger. So there's lots of levers that you can pull there. But just remember, if you want to lose body fat, you're not starving if you're hungry, and it's okay to be a little bit hungry.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Matthew is saying, I've been off my antidepressant medications now for over 3 weeks. The power of meat, weight training, magnesium supplementation, and community helped me through the withdrawal symptoms. I think that's a great comment, Matthew. Mike, what do you think about iodine supplementation? And is there any study on how hypothyroidism can affect training performance and ability to build muscle mass? I don't know if there's any particular studies, but obviously if you're hypothyroid, fatigue is one of the things. If you're hypothyroid, you tend to be a bit slower, which means your digestion and your recovery and everything is a bit slower. So I would imagine that it possibly is detrimental. Then you asked about iodine supplementation. I think it's something you could try, see if it makes any difference. Just be careful. Just basically start off with a couple of drops of an iodine supplementation and see how you go. And don't worry too much, because if it's not needed, you'll urinate it out. And in fact, that's how they work out if you're deficient in iodine. That's exactly what they do, iodine clearance test. Well, they have a set amount of iodine, which you drink, and they monitor your urine over the next 24 hours. And if, let's just say, because I know my YouTube channel hits over 100 countries, and let's say 100 units of iodine, let's say you just drunk 100 units of iodine. If you then urinate out 100 units of iodine in your urine over the 24 hours, it's very unlikely you are deficient. It's really pretty simple. In fact, they can do that with lots of things like creatinine. They do creatinine clearance, and you can find out these things, but you probably have to pay money, not get a doctor to do it. Rich, did you want to chime in on that one?
No, spot on. I agree. I'm not aware of any research to show that it affects athletic performance, but you should imagine through the mechanisms that you mentioned that it would do. So I guess as a byproduct, it could potentially. Yeah, nothing to add to that. I think you've nailed it.
Thank you very much. It's good. Herbert likes to throw in these questions. How do we store water in our body? If you know the answer. I know the answer. You got intracellular and extracellular fluids. So you probably have heard of that. So the cell retains some of the water. Glycogen is a very good example of storing water. For one glucose molecule, you'll have 3 molecules of water. Electrolytes attach themselves to water, which is a big issue. You see, this is why I'm always saying don't over drink water, because you'll just urinate it out and you will just flush your electrolytes out. So many different ways. I can't think of any other ways. I suppose in the blood. Oh, yeah, so the blood stores water, and that's one of the things you can test this actually. If you have a big glass of water like this, always put some salt in it. I always recommend some sort of electrolyte from Keto-pro. But anyway, if you drank that and you measured your blood pressure, you would see that it does raise your blood pressure, because the water, part of the water, goes into the blood and it increases the blood volume. So obviously you need to do your blood pressure before you drink the water and after. But you can prove that that's what's happening. Did I miss anything, Rich, or are we pretty much there on that one?
Spot on.
Cool. Right. Yes. So Warren was the person that says to me, the whole idea behind carnivore is to be supplement free. And yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
That's
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's what we should be. We should certainly be aiming for that, for sure. And that's what I think allows us to come away from a lot of the crap that is out there on the market, especially from these so-called antioxidant sort of side of things. In regards to, there's still awful lot of influencers out there that still believe these supplements and antioxidants are conferring a benefit, and they're utter rubbish. They're not antioxidants, they're pro-oxidants, and that's something we've covered lots of times, isn't it? But it's
yeah. Warren, why do you guys feel we need electrolytes when people like Anthony Chafee, etc., don't? Personally, I no longer use them either and feel no difference. Well, that you summed it up there. You feel no difference. I don't take them all the time, but sometimes I feel a little bit dehydrated, so I take them. But you're right, Chafee doesn't take them, which is great. And I don't think Sean Baker takes them. And I aim to get to that at some point. And I don't feel I need to take them very often.
I think when it comes to Chafee, I was talking to him a little while back in regards to why he doesn't. And he's been carnivore or plant-free for an awful long time. So you'd think that any damage that has been caused has probably been negated by the fact he's been living the lifestyle for quite a long time. But coming back to something you mentioned earlier, Steve, that most of us are coming from environments of a lifetime of abuse of toxins, and things like oxalate dumping can occur for an awful long time. And supplementation in regards to oxalate dumping is incredibly important to prevent any serious side effects. So it's, I know that he's not against salt. Honestly, I know he does salt occasionally. But there are groups of people, even within the carnivore community, that don't use salt at all, because that fuels their sugar cravings, which is crazy, isn't it? But I quite often think that when we do get a sugar craving, it may actually be the opposite, and it's a craving for salts. But some people don't. So, a lot of us do, and I think a lot of us need to, especially when we're coming from this state of insulin resistance. But it's if I can get to a point where I don't need to supplement with any electrolyte or add salt to my food, and even better, just makes things easier for me.
Dr. Silva, can I eat beef or lamb liver daily? I'm carnivore.
Yeah.
You can.
I do.
Yeah.
I mean, do. Yeah. Simple answer.
Yeah. I think your body will tell you if you're not doing well with it. Here's a nice simple one. Carnivore Muscle. Jonathan, good evening. The author of a fantastic book called Beef Up, by the way. Will either of you be going to the PHC UK thing this year? Public health collaboration, that is, in the UK. It might be the only time I get the chance to see you both. Wow, that's a bit mystic. Are you going somewhere, Jonathan, or is that just the only time you want to see us? It's just a polite way. Are you going, Rich?
I'm hoping to. Yeah, we'll see. If not, I'm sure we'll arrange a meetup, MEAT, outside of that.
I've no idea. I can't plan that far ahead at the moment. My Apex Odyssey is the name here. Formerly no interest in moving. Since 4-month carnivore, craving exercise, but body is not physically able, i.e. fell when sprinting, can't get up and down off the floor. How can I build up to it? Well, you see, if you've not exercised and then you've gone out sprinting, and I understand why that is, because there is a real big movement, no pun intended, to get people sprinting in the social media. You've just stretch yourself. So if you are in a chair and it's difficult to get out of a chair, then that is an intense exercise for you, right? Sprinting is intense for people, but so is that. If it's intense for you, that's your level. That this is not being derogatory to you either. So you could do some chair squats. So it's looking at where you are and doing slightly more. So you need to get a physiological training response. You've got to tell your body, what we've been doing for the last year, we're going to do a bit more of that. So if you're bodybuilding, for instance, and you just use the same weight and do the same reps in the same time, over time, you will get no benefit because your body will just adapt and be able to do it really easily. It's a bit like when people start walking and they say, oh, I couldn't walk to the post office. I'm out of breath, like at the end, I can't get to the post office. Well, then if you give them that target to get to the post office, at some point, I mean, I do a lot of rehab, so I have older people where it was important to get to the post office. When you go back to see them, maybe 6 months later, I say, well, how are you getting on with the walking? Oh, it's a piece of cake. I can get to the post office and back, no problem. And I say, oh, what else do you do? Well, no, I walk to the post office and back, and that's it. So if you want to extend the ability to walk, you need to go to the post office and then to the butcher's, or some other thing, and bring back something that's a bit heavier than you normally bring back. So that hopefully that analogy is going to help you to think about exercise in a different way. You've always got to push your body. There's no point in training. If you're a 100-meter sprinter and you can do it in 11 seconds, there's no point in going out and running it in 20, because all you're doing is training yourself to be slower. You've got to keep trying to push yourself. Sorry, Rich, you're dying to jump in there.
No, it's, just to add on to what you were saying there, the sprinting thing, for example. Sprinting is hard, really hard. I've come from an athletic background. Prior to this, for those that don't know, I used to be clinically obese and type 2 diabetic. Suffered with a whole host of issues like daily debilitating migraines, chronic fatigue, depression, anxiety, arthritic pains, you name it, and I used to suffer with it. But I got into bodybuilding after I became keto and carnivore, and then progressed further down the journey. But this last year, 23, I got into running, and I was told by a friend of mine not to overdo it. Don't do too much too soon. 10% week on week, he said. And it's not that I didn't believe the advice. I believed that what that person was telling me was true, but I just felt so good. Like the first run that I did, I couldn't run further than 1.5K. In fact, the first 2 runs. Soon after, I was running 5K. And yes, it was hurting, but my times were getting faster. That perceived exertion is relative. It always hurts when you train. It's just your output becomes better. So that 10% rule, either gain 10% in distance week on week, or look at speed and try to gain that, rather than doing everything. And that's exactly what I did. I tried to run fast and far, and I injured, and it put me out of action last year for nearly 6 months. And I healed incredibly well, but every couple of weeks I would feel ready to start running again, and I would start to run, and then he would come back. Loads of issues, all sorts of different parts of my legs, and it's because I'm not used to running. So you see these things with sprinting and things on the social medias now, and yes, sprinting is fantastic, but if you haven't run prior to that, then you shouldn't be sprinting. Come back to the old analogy: don't walk before you can run.
Perfect.
Sorry, the other way around even, isn't it? Don't run before you can walk. You've got to increment these things slowly. Go for a light jog and increment it 10% week on week. Do not do what I did, because it put me out of action for 6 months. I've learned my lesson, and now I've learned that we heal and repair when we're not training. The training is fantastic, but we shouldn't be overdoing that anyway. Put your effort in, heal and repair, do everything that you need to, but don't jump straight into sprinting. Increment it slowly.
That's a great thing to say. You could look at my app, by the way. I have workout programs for all levels, and it gives you guidance on how to start. And all you do is you just search Google or Apple, the Carnivore Experience, and then you'll be able to download the app, click on Learn at the bottom for free access, and there's training programs in there. So There you go. Or you can email us. Right. Moving on. Phil Richardson is saying sometimes you have to heal first and then lose weight, which is very true. United Carnivore saying greetings from Tampa Bay. Let's have a look at this. This is quite interesting. United Carnivore. I healed and lost. Was 360 last year, now at 180. Gratitude is my only attitude, having constant fun. 55 and alive. I like those sound bites. Of course, gratitude is vitamin G, isn't it? That's what we say. Gratitude is definitely something that people should practice because it seems to help. And there are studies on that it has helped. Right. Oh, here's a question. Get fit. Question. How to calculate fat macros for fat loss. 51-year-old woman.
Yeah, do you know, it's not as straightforward as you would think. Everybody's body works differently. Fat is essential. We can't live without it. And in fact, most of the energy required in the body needs to come from fat. So when we look at calories or energy, and we look at carbohydrate and even protein, they don't fill the void that the body has of healing, building, and repairing and carrying out all of these functions. At 2/3 at least of that needs to come from fat. And this is where most people go wrong. This is why most people overconsume food and not heal and repair their body. So fat is very important, but it is the lever that we pull if we are overweight. The first thing I would do is base it around your protein if you are going to track. As a female, I would aim for around 0.9 grams per pound of body weight. And first of all, eat as nature intended. Just eat any fat that comes along with that protein. Keep carbs to a minimum. Track that for a week or two. And if you find that you're not losing, but your energy, your mental clarity, and all those things are good, then start reducing the fat incrementally. There is an argument not to, what you don't want to do is consume too little fat. So I find days of reducing fat on some days and eating higher fat on others works better for me. With the 3 minutes we've got, probably it's not enough to go into to explain that strategy, but that works really well. But fundamentally, you need to find your baseline and reduce your fat content off the back of that. As long as you're hitting your protein, 0.9 grams per pound of body weight, 0.9 grams per pound. Eat fat as nature intended and adjust fat moving forward and see how you go on. But weight goes well beyond this. It isn't just to do with fat. And as we said earlier, a lot of fat is stored in the muscle. Weight gain is inflammation. It's inflammatory based as well. So if you're suffering with any inflammatory responses, or even if you're training, I find my body weight fluctuates a massive amount when I'm training hard because of that stress that I'm putting on my body, even without gaining fat. But it's as a macro split, it isn't as easy as you would think. But base it on the protein and reduce until you find that sweet spot. And then you'd have to adjust it going on beyond that. But that's a talk probably for 3 or 4 months down the line again then.
Brilliant, Rich. And we're coming up to the end of the hour. So if we haven't got to your questions, I do apologize. We go over to a different platform at 8 p.m., one that rhymes with apple crumble. And I've put the link in the chat for you. Definitely happy with, for instance, Warren saying that he completely disagrees with us about supplementation. We're not here to say we're right about everything. We just offer an opinion. So, and we have guests on that would offer a different opinion as well. Totally get it, Warren. Not a problem. Absolutely no problem at all. Anyway, we are going to be saying goodbye here on YouTube. Thank you very much. Do you want to say thank you, Rich?
Yeah, thank you all. I'm just thinking there's a few questions there that maybe we can take on to the other platform if we were slow on questions. So maybe we'll get to those over there.
Yeah, I've done a screenshot of those questions. So hopefully we'll be able to do that. So anyway, yes, the link is in the description and hopefully we'll see you over there. But if you're not going to join us, thank you for watching this far. Don't forget to subscribe to both of our channels. It really does help. So have a great day. Thank you.